Hello, and welcome to another Banjo live stream. As always, the first thing I will say, and I'll continue to say it throughout the live stream, is if there's any audio issues, if I'm too quiet, let me know. If it's too loud, let me know. If the audio sounds weird, let me know. If the video looks weird, let me know within reason. Because I can hopefully affect some of those things. But we're back for more Banjo questions. And hopefully some Banjo answers. I have not played any Banjo today. I have been working on a video. I played a little bit of Banjo for the video, but I did not practice anything today, unfortunately. Been working on all that Gnome Kelly stuff, which is very cool, but not today, so maybe I'll play a little bit of that today at some point. But just to get warmed up, because I think I'll play a little bit during this live stream, I'm going to play something for an undisclosed amount of time. We'll see. And then I'll get to answering some questions. So if you have questions, feel free to ask them. You're the first ones here. So if you ask your questions, you're likely to get those questions answered. But make sure, and if you're watching, whoever you're watching, make sure you're asking these questions on YouTube. On the actual YouTube platform. That's where I actually see the questions. Okay, so I'll just play for a little while, for a minute or two, just to let everyone get a chance to get in here and get settled. Get the hands warmed up, all that. Yeah. Something like that anyway. Can you tell I haven't played today? So let's see. Just some keeping up on some of this comments. We got people from all over the place. That's very cool. First question you got to answer, obviously, enjoying a little Maker's Mark. In fact, no, not Maker's Mark. As I have been home all the time for the last 2 weeks or so. Actually, I've had that opportunity. I could have gone to the grocery store. I could have certainly re-upped on the nice scotch that I enjoy most of the time. This is Fleischmann's, a fine blended something or other. It's certainly whiskey, but it doesn't cost you much, and it doesn't taste like much, I'll tell you that. Okay, but the first real question we have is, what are the most common modes a banjo player typically plays in? From Lara. Sorry. Modes are such an interesting thing to talk about with bluegrass because depending on what style you're playing, it may or may not be a relevant thing to think about. I mean, you can think about whatever you want to think about, but it's interesting. It may or may not be helpful. Let's first just talk about like Scruggs style. I would argue that if you're just playing Scruggs style, just that kind of thing, modes I don't think are going to be super helpful. Like, it's not a useful way to think about melody and harmony in order to get the right sound. Now, when you branch off into like melodic style or single string, or when you're trying to like deal with a melodic line of some kind, then it can become kind of interesting. But that's not to say that it's not useful to talk about modes at all. It can be. So what is meant by modes is, let's say, for instance, you have a G major scale. Well, if you start that scale on any other note of that scale, like let's say I play all the same notes. So G major scale is just G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, right? That's the G major scale. If I play the same notes starting on A, so it's still all those same notes, just starting on A. They would refer to that as the A-Dorian mode. And what that means is it's really just like you're looking at the same G major scale from a different angle, almost, because A minor right? Whereas usually if you think about the A minor scale, you'd think about it as being A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, right? So it doesn't matter if you start on any other note other than G. If you're thinking about that as your home base, then you're playing a different mode. If this is all very confusing to you at the moment, then you'll understand why it might not be the most useful thing to think about in terms of, because we're not really thinking about scales as much in that realm. That said, it doesn't mean that we're not playing in different modes per se. Like, for instance, if you're going to play something like Salt Creek, something like that, you could think about that as being like the Mixolydian mode. I say all of this to mean that you'll come across a bunch of different modes in bluegrass. I say a bunch. So the major scale, that's Ionian mode. That's what they call that, right? So you'll see that. Mixolydian, you'll see that for something like Salt Creek or Red-Haired Boy or something like that, right? Not really. Clinch Mountain Backstep is like minor, really. But Salt Creek, but it's always some combination of those things because, for instance, in G Mixolydian, there's no D major chord, but you would have that in the song, right? So it's tough to say. But suffice it to say, what I think is probably the best way to look at it is like if you're playing a tune like one of those kind of major minor sounding songs, then Mixolydian is the way you want to go, right? But most of the time, you're just going to play the major scale, really. If it's like Whiskey Before Breakfast, just the major scale. You're like on a tune like Whiskey Before Breakfast, there really wouldn't be a good reason to play anything else. You could think of, if some people think about different modes for different chords, within, if you're playing Whiskey Before Breakfast, D, G, D, A. You know, you could think of the A playing A mixolydian when you get to the A chord, but it's all the same scale as the original D major. So it's really probably better to just think about D major just across the board for a tune like that. You know what I mean? And if I ever don't answer a question the way you're hoping I might, or you don't have some clarification, then feel free to ask for more clarification. Would you mind showing us how you approach big spike hammer backup? Yeah. I mean, in a way, it's not any different than any other song. So let's think if we're thinking about the now making sure I got the right song in my head. So big spike hammer. In terms of the backup, so if you think about the rolling backup lesson that I've got on YouTube or the up the neck backup, you know, most of the time I'm really just applying those concepts unless I'm using an actual specific lick that I've learned that fits over certain chords. So just to keep it as basic as possible, you know, I just do some rolling backup first. You know, there's not too much other than what's exactly in the rolling backup lesson that I posted. It's really just those patterns. Anything beyond that is substituting licks that are appropriate for each chord. So, which you can learn really in any tune. You know, like if you ever heard a tune that goes like this, that's appropriate over a G chord, right? Or if you ever heard something that goes like this on a C chord, then that's appropriate on C. So it's like, you know, if you learn a couple songs, you're gonna run into some of these little patterns that you can use. You know what I mean? So this is just part of the thing. So if I was gonna really play rolling back up with all the bells and whistles, which are not that many bells and whistles really, it'd probably be more like this. Right? So it really just comes down to learning a couple different licks and being able to apply them. And so if you want to learn some of those licks, check out my videos of JD Crowe with the Bluegrass Album Band, all of which the tab is free for. That's not Patreon stuff. That's all free stuff. So go check out anything I posted from the Bluegrass Album Band stuff, and usually there's backup. And the same thing goes for any of the up the neck stuff, you know. You know, those are all just licks I've taken from other backup things I've learned. And in that way, I don't think about one tune as being different than another. They're all kind of interchangeable because they all have like the same 4 chords. You just got to put them in the right order. Hopefully that's helpful. But check out my lessons on backup specifically. All of that stuff is meant to be able to apply to any song, basically. And if you're looking for more to play on any song, then what you're looking for is maybe a tab or a transcription of somebody else's backup where you can learn those patterns, those extra patterns. Because, for instance, I can't really just say, like, oh, just play something like... I mean, you could learn that exact thing from one of those tabs. But if I just say play something like that, it doesn't really mean a whole lot. What really, where you really get all that is from the source. All right, let's see if we can do quick questions. I play a mid-70s RB250. At jams, it gets drowned out by other instruments, especially other banjos. Have other banjos gotten louder, much louder in recent years? I assume banjos have always been very loud. And it's not like banjo players are loud. I mean, banjos are not loud. Banjo players are loud, right? Because that's possible, right? But it could also, all these things are possible. So banjo's not that loud. Banjo players are loud. Especially if you talk to them about banjos, they get very loud. So the answer, there's the question that you're asking, and then there's like the question that that you're not asking that probably deserves an answer to. The question that you're asking is more about like actually dealing with your own volume and how loud should you play and all that. Let's just assume for a minute there aren't other banjos. Let's just assume it's just the instruments in a normal bluegrass band, which is like guitar, mandolin, bass, fiddle, banjo, maybe dobro. Depends who you ask. In that situation, you do want to dig in. You don't want to play like... you don't want to play like that. You don't want to play too hard, but you want to play hard. So, I mean, it's a simplistic answer, but maybe play a little harder. Your banjo might be a little quieter if you haven't changed your strings in a while. And your banjo might be a little quieter if the head is very loose. If the head's a little bit tighter, that can also make it louder. But you might just need to dig in more. Now, the other thing that you're asking, or maybe you're not intentionally asking, is specifically about like other banjos. To me, if there's other banjos, I am not going to compete. I'm not going to play that game. I'm not interested in being heard among banjos, plural, because it's not my job to fix the issues caused by irresponsible banjo players. Because that happens a lot. Have you ever been somewhere and there's a lot of banjo noise going on? That's... it's sad, but it's not your fault, and it's not your problem. So that's maybe not the nicest answer for those people. But for you, it's like you're obviously recognizing the fact that people are playing too much. So I wouldn't try to compete with other banjos. Maybe the best way is to say, hey guys, maybe we got a lot. That's a good way to say it. Is not to say you guys are being too loud. You can say, hey, let's all tone it down a little bit. If it's not my solo, or if it's somebody else's solo, let's all tone it down a little bit because there's so many banjos. Don't make it a their problem thing. Make it a, hey, we can all work together to fix this, even though it's probably their fault. So that can be helpful. Can you show the details of that typical bluegrass lick at the end of a section? I can play what I think it is, but I can't seem to play it and land on the right. The typical lick at the end of a section. I think it depends what you mean. I don't know if maybe it's... If it's that, then comment if that's it or if it's not that, and we'll come back to that one. I've seen the YouTube video with Bale playing with Ricky Skaggs' band in some backstage rehearsal room. They play Dear Old Dixie. If so, do you know any of the licks he plays? I don't. I know the video, but I don't... I don't know any of the licks. I haven't really studied what happens there. I know he does go through some cool up the neck stuff. There's a lot of cool stuff like that, but I don't know what it is. Maybe I'll look into what's the deal with that. Okay, so yeah, that lick seems like that's the one. It's just on the third string there, right? Here's what you got to do. Go to, I'm not going to tab it out right now because if you want it, you can go to, again, to the J.D. Crowe Bluegrass Album Band tabs that I have on YouTube. Just search Eli Gilbert, Bluegrass Album Band, J.D. Crowe, whatever. Most of the breaks on those have that at the ending, and you can get the tab for free for that. So go take a look at the end. Let's see. Scrugsy break to a tune you don't know. All known licks or some other kind of improvisation. If I don't know the tune, I'm hopefully going to be able to pick up the melody by the time my solo comes around. You know, if I hear somebody singing, this 9-pound hammer is a little too heavy, then hopefully I'm going to be able to figure out, you know. Basis says, that was it, but you stopped it just before I need it. I don't know what you mean. Like, is the lick come after that? Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, we're cool. Good. Okay, back to Scrugsy Rake to a tune you don't know, all known licks, or some other kind of, yeah. So hopefully I'm going to figure out what the melody is. And the way to do that is to think about, okay, when they sing that part of the melody, does it remind me of any tunes that I do already know? I'm trying to relate everything back to something that I do already know. If I know 9-pound hammer, then I also know how to start Will the Circle Be Unbroken. So I'm trying to make those connections in my mind. If not, I'm probably playing, I'm just going to make sure I'm on the right chords, and I'm not going to go crazy with a bunch of whatever. I'm just going to... that kind of, I'm gonna play just kind of Scrugsy licks if I really can't figure out what the melody is. Not gonna be, that's not a good time for that. Okay, can you tell us about your banjo style 3? So it's not a style 3. The other banjo I play is a TB11 that looks like a style 3, but it's a TB11 that has a Frank Neat neck on it. And the back was taken off so it doesn't look like an 11, but it's a TB11 from the 30s. This is a Huber that I'm borrowing from Gabe Hirschfeld. It was once owned by the late, great Mike Kropp, as you can see from the block there. Great banjo player. Really fantastic person in the community that I unfortunately never even met, but I love his playing, and so I'm happy to be playing this banjo, just on loan for the moment. But it's a Huber. I don't know much about Huber banjos. Huber True Tone, I guess. It's got the HR30 tone ring in it. And I think it sounds great. It's got a little bit of a radius neck on it, if you can see. Radius board. Nice for that kind of stuff. Did you ever listen to the Tom T. Hall version of Fox on the Run featuring Raymond Faircloth? I think you mean Fairchild. No, I have not yet, but I'll check it out. Where do I sign up for one? Aha! David Andrews says, hey, Eli, where do I sign up for a $1 a month? Which site? Well, David, thanks for bringing that up, because it's almost 30 minutes into this live stream, and I have yet to even advertise. Wow. You're missing out on all the advertisement. Let me just advertise to you for a moment. So if you're enjoying this live stream, you get to watch it after it's over, because you won't be able to watch it after it's over unless you are a subscriber on Patreon. And Patreon is a website where I post all the tablature for all my lessons, extra bonus lessons, practice tips. You get to watch these live streams, all kinds of extra stuff. It's a little bit easier to get in touch with me on Patreon than other places usually. All kinds of great stuff. So if you go to patreon.com/Eli Gilbert Banjo, you can sign up for that. And if you sign up for like $1, for instance, you get all the tabs that I post all the time, even the ones I posted in the past, into the future. I mean, if you go on for $1, I think it's like 100 tabs for $1 a month. It is not a bad value, I'll tell you that. So you might be interested in that kind of thing. But what is this, just advertising? What am I trying to get your money? Not so much. Let's see. Rob says, I recently created some notes to guide my practicing. I'll paste it here. Sorry if it's kind of longish. Just wondering if you have any thoughts on a practice routine. Aha. So I won't read out all the things that Rob posted, but these are all good things to... I will say this: you're keeping track of all the right things. That's all the things you'd want to be able to do if you wanted to be able to do everything on the banjo. rather, whether or not that, whether or not it's actually easy for you to keep up with all that is who knows. That's the challenging part, right? So I would say the only advice that I have, considering the fact that you're keeping track of all the right things, is that you should probably just follow the path towards the thing that you want to be able to do. Sometimes I find myself practicing a bunch of things that I don't necessarily need to be very good at, or I don't want to be very good at, or I'm not prioritizing. If I want to get really good at playing Scruggs style, I'm not going to practice scales. That doesn't help me. And if I want to get really good at playing scales, then I might spend a little bit less time practicing the Scruggs style stuff. I kind of go back and forth. But it can be great to do everything. Like if you do 5 minutes of each topic every day, that's great. Sometimes I do like to focus on one thing for like a week or 2 weeks and get really good at that, and then reintegrate everything else. So go where the heat is, I think is what I'm saying. But those are all great things that you're keeping a lookout for. Tablature computer program to use. I use Tablet is something I've used in the past, but I now use Guitar Pro, which I prefer so much more. It is so much easier to use, in my opinion. So I use Guitar Pro. Bill says, Gabe's Banjo, are you from the Boston area? I'm actually from Maine, but I get down to Boston a decent amount, or Cambridge anyway, to hang out with those bluegrass folks. Michael Lane says, your material is a bargain at the price you offer. You mean my price on patreon.com/Eli Gilbert Banjo? Thank you. Let's see. PFC Beetle Bailey says, your up the neck tends to follow the 321, 321, 321, 312. Does it? I think it does, probably. Yeah, that's it mostly. Yeah. The up the neck backup. It is just like the down the neck backup in that it's all patterns, right? It's all little licks and patterns. None of the stuff that you see people play up here when they're just playing Scruggs style up the neck. I mean, there's a little bit of improvisation maybe when you go. Maybe a little bit of improvisation, but there's not a lot. It's kind of the same, when somebody plays this. It's no different than when somebody goes. They're all just licks that Scruggs played. So if you learn the up the neck backup that those people played, you're going to have that material. And a lot of that is available on my earlier videos of like J.D. Crowe or with the Bluegrass Album Band. It's got a lot of up the neck backup that's got all that material in there. Let's see. Cowboy742 says, hit the like button. 7 likes with 40 plus people watching. Only 7 likes. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. The more subscribers there are, the more likes and the more comments, the more YouTube then sends my video to other people, and then maybe they participate. But you got to be careful, because because I'm playing this game, I'm just going to level with everyone here because there's no reason not to be transparent about it. But YouTube is a game, and the game is to get more subscribers and more likes and whatever, because if you get more likes and subscribers, then you'll get more likes and subscribers. So, hopefully you have a purpose for doing that. What the way it works out for me is that if more people do all these things, more people pay attention, then YouTube recommends it to other people who then might get more banjo information. It just spreads it for me, hopefully, So, the reason I make these videos is because I want I want to make the content that I wish existed when I was learning how to play banjo. So if those people are out there trying to learn banjo, then maybe this is helpful. So you can help me do that by subscribing and liking and commenting, all that stuff. So that makes a big difference in terms of keeping the banjo thing alive. That's really the main point of all of it. Let's see. Sean says whiskey tonight. Yes, this is Fleischmann's. What is it? Blended something? I don't know. It comes in a plastic bottle. It's actually surprisingly not bad. I'm more of a Scotch person in general, but I don't mind really any kind of whiskey in general. I'm not other liquors not as interested. It's it's just kind of more fun. There's something about the depth of flavors that whiskey has that is interesting, no matter what kind of thing it is. Mark says, kind of like a virus. Yes, we are trying to spread the banjo like a virus, and it is like a virus. It is contagious, and it makes people feel unwell. I hope everybody's doing well out there. It's definitely a interesting time. What are some good exercises? What are some good exercises to practice single string Reno stuff? So in general, the single string is a lot about the right hand, so we'll talk about the right hand first, but that's not it. So let's just assume you're doing thumb and index, right? That's, for most people, just thumb, index, right? I'm just going to do that on each string. Right? Astro, yeah, that's funny. Yes, different train of thought. So I'm going to do that on each string, and here's what you can do to make that interesting. I mean, obviously you want to do that with the metronome, slowly at first and build up speed, as always. But you can do a different number of notes on each string, right? You could do 4. You could do 2. I mean, you could do 8. Right? But you could also do like 3, which is interesting because we do thumb, index. So, sorry, thumb, index, thumb. And then the first note on the next string is going to be index. You're crossing over, right? So that makes it weird. You could do 5. Sorry. Any number of those. And if it's making your hand confused, then you know you're doing the right thing. So that's the right hand. That's most of what you would do for the right hand, is just get that in time. On the left hand, the name of the game with single string is really actually about having these hands being synchronized. You know, if they're not, it sounds... you're not going to get a full sound. So you want to make sure that you play your note, and the next note you play, this finger that's about to go down goes down at exactly the moment when you're playing it. It doesn't want to go early. That's not good. It doesn't want to go late. Right? It wants to go... So you got to practice that really slowly too. Because then when you get up to speed, hopefully it's relatively smooth. After that, just those general concepts, you want to keep those in mind every time you're practicing single string stuff. The best thing you can do is either learn single string licks, or just practice single string scales, which are available in my single string lesson on YouTube, but basically just using the G major scale. That kind of thing, right? And then you can do that in different, you could go. There's a lot of different ways you can do that, and as you do more combinations, then you can improvise with these different combinations. But in terms of the actually Don Reno stuff, you want to learn Don Reno tunes, right? Like what's that one he does? I can't remember what the name of it is, but it has that section that goes. Whatever that one is, I can't remember what that tune is, but learn the tunes that he does that in. Go to Arkansas Traveler, the version of Arkansas Traveler that I posted. The one in, they're both single string. Yeah. And one of them is from Don Reno, right? One of them is in D, and it's just the way I play it. But one's in G also. I don't even remember it. But anyway, it's single string and it's Don Reno. Someone asked about a practice routine. Can you talk to that? Practice routine, yeah, that's a good thing to talk about. There have been times when I had a very rigid routine that I would practice, and it was probably helpful. I don't these days. I kind of just learn the things that I'm trying to do for videos, or if I have a gig or something, I'm just going to learn those things, and it keeps me busy enough. But when I was really trying to get everything together at first, not that I'm not now, but when I was in school anyway, I would probably start by playing rolls slowly with the metronome, like just playing a forward roll, just going through a couple different rolls, speeding it up. And then most of what I do, or did, I still do, is try to learn a song or a solo or something, or a fiddle tune or whatever it was. Try to learn something, and then the challenges that I have with that song are going to dictate what I practice. So let's say I'm playing Cripple Creek. Follow the leader. Yeah, that is what it is. If I'm trying to learn Cripple Creek, then hopefully I can do all the things I'm supposed to do to play that tune. But when I was first learning it, I couldn't do a lot of the things. So what are the things that happens? There's a slide. There's a pinch. That kind of thing. There's another slide. Pull off. And a hammer on. It's basically everything you got to do to be able to play the banjo. Sorry, it just started raining outside my window, and it sounds like somebody's tapping on the window. So the things I would practice then would be I'd practice a slide, right? And if it sounded like this, or if it had one of those issues, then I'd practice just getting it. So that'd be my practice routine, is do that. And if I go through all the different things that I'm trying to do, all the different things in that tune in Cripple Creek that I'm trying to be able to do, if I go through all those things, like that's my practice routine. Is like, okay, well, I got to be good at slides, got to be good at pull-offs, got to be good at hammer-ons. Those are all things worthy of practicing. But assuming I can do all those things, I'm mostly going to spend my time learning songs and tunes and playing along with recordings, and playing along with the metronome. That's really, for bluegrass anyway, that's it. Once you get into things like improvising, melodic scales, single string scales, different techniques and stuff, it can really get, it can become another thing, which we can talk about another time. Maybe that's a bigger topic. These are all things I'm going to talk about in lessons for sure. Just to continue on this a little bit, do you have a structured routine though, like 10 minutes of rolls and then intense learning followed by having fun? Yeah. I've never done it like I timed everything out where I did a specific amount of each thing. I think that's more just the way I'm the way I'm wired is I can't do like 10 minutes of this every day and 20 minutes of this every day. It's more like do at least do like a couple hours of everything every day is more likely what's going to happen. So I'll do a lot of everything, but it's not necessarily organized particularly well. But you can definitely do that if that works for you, if you're an organized person. I'm just not that type of organized. I don't think I'm particularly organized at all, actually. I just more blunt force. Like I just practice until I got it. That's kind of thing. Both ways are useful, but I can't totally speak to how much time you should spend on each thing. Maybe spend like 10% of your practice time warming up. I wouldn't spend, if you spend half your time warming up, then you're not using your time great, obviously. Up to you. But Astro, that's very kind. Just practicing a lot is practicing like me. I practice, well, I don't practice as nearly as much as I used to, but these days I'm practicing quite a bit. So just practice a bunch. Let's see. But in terms of a warm up, like something that's going to get me kind of ready to practice whatever, because when I'm practicing, I hope my hands are at full capacity, whatever. One really good thing you can do is just take one roll pattern, really slow with the metronome, play it for maybe 30 seconds, make the metronome go a little faster, play for 30 seconds, metronome a little faster, and just keep doing that until you can't play any faster. It's going to tire your hand out, and you're going to have to take a 5-minute, 10-minute break, but it's going to get you warmed up. You could do that, and then you could do the same thing with the tune. You could do, if I play like some tune that you like to play fast, like Shuckin' the Corn or something. I would definitely play it around that speed and then play it a little faster, and then playing a little faster, and then a little faster. That'll get both hands warmed up because that's important. So, and that's how I'll warm up for a gig or something. Is I'll just play one tune over and over again until it gets a little bit faster and faster. Let's see. Make sure I'm not missing anything. Might have to go up a little bit. Oh, okay. Your opinion of the iReal Pro app and others like it for practice, less boring than the metronome. Yeah, so if you're playing along with like a play along track or the iReal Pro or something other than a metronome, that's fine as long as the timing is good. It's the same thing as playing with a recording. As long as the timing is good, it's going to be helpful. One of the benefits of a metronome is that it's a pretty bare sound. It's a pretty sparse sound, so you don't have a bunch of instruments kind of clogging up the whole thing, so you can't quite hear what is in time or out of time or whatever. When it's just the metronome and you, all you're hearing is yourself and the metronome, so it's really easy to hear, or it's much easier to hear if you're the problem. If you play along with like the iReal Pro thing, it can kind of be easy to just just end up being kind of swept up in the fun of it, which is fun. But remember that we're practicing, not having fun. Sometimes it's both. I have fun practicing, but when we're practicing, we're specifically trying to get better. So if you want to have fun, do anything. If you want to practice, just keep track of whether or not you're really paying attention. And I find it easier to pay attention to the metronome because if I'm playing along with anything else, it can be a little bit hard to focus. That said, playing along with a recording is helpful because it's like you're playing along with a real band. A band that's so good that it doesn't even mess them up when you mess up, right? Like it's nice to play with Lonesome River Band because I can screw up all they want and they don't care. So that's what you have to be careful with. But I definitely, playing along with, I think I would say rather than playing along with like a play along track or a software thing, I would find a recording at an appropriate speed if you can, just because it's going to be a little more human and alive. The metronome's not going to fool you into being a robotic player. Nothing is really, but I do feel like playing along with like software bands to be a little it just doesn't feel like the real thing, so it maybe doesn't get you ready for the real thing in the same way. I don't know. It's tough to say. Let's see. Do you have favorite recordings to play along with? Yeah, so it's tough with the older recordings because like the old Flat and Scruggs stuff usually is up a half step. Not all of it. Like some of it is barely out of tune. Some of it is up a whole half step. Some of it's actually in G. You know, I used to know which ones were which, so I could tune up and down and put on a capo if I need to or whatever. And that's a good thing to do. But Bluegrass Album Band is probably the best stuff to Bluegrass Album Band is probably the best stuff to play along with, in my opinion. It's pretty much in tune. That's a little bit off sometimes, but that's pretty representative of what the average like rhythmic feel is these days with bluegrass. Yeah, Bluegrass Album Band. The Boxcars is great. Depends who you're into, you know. You know, it's tough. Any modern band that you like, any recent band that you like, is probably just going to be in tune, so that's a good thing. I would, it's tough to recommend exactly who to play along with, but I would say this: if it's a band like a really like well-known popular band, then it's a good chance that they're really going to be in time, just because they wouldn't release a record that wasn't completely in time. Like, you ever hear something that it's pretty good, but it's like a little bit amateur or whatever. Not that that's bad, because that's where we're all at, but like, be very picky about what you play along with. So for instance, Bluegrass Album Band, Flat and Scruggs, if you can be in tune with them, the Carnegie Hall record is basically in tune, I think, if I recall. And that kind of thing. But sometimes you'll listen to something and it's like, if it's not a absolutely stellar version of it, don't bother playing along with it, because you want to train yourself to play along with things that are amazing. Maybe someday we'll get there. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Make sure we keep any good at picking Shady Grove? Well, it depends which Shady Grove you're talking about, because the I know the one that Doyle Austin recorded, the major one, What does Terry Bakken do? Whatever that is, yeah. The minor one, that's not even Shady Grove. No, the minor one I don't really play much at all. It doesn't come up as much in my life. I should learn it. It's a good one. Michael says, is it really that important to keep the ring finger and pinky planted? I find it difficult to keep my ring finger on the head and do better with just my pinky on the head. Yeah, so if you're comfortable with just the pinky, then do just the pinky. That's what Russ Carson does. That's what Sammy Sheeler does. That's what plenty of people do. So just do that. But some people also do just the ring finger. I do just the ring finger. I used to do just the pinky. I used to do just the ring finger. Used to do both. Now I just do the ring finger again. That's a whole saga. But some people do just the ring finger. Some people also do both. But like, if just the pinky finger is good enough for Sammy Sheeler, it's good enough for me, and it's good enough for you, as far as I'm concerned. So just pinky finger, go for it, and don't look back. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, so Rob, if you're watching on Facebook, if you click in the video, like if you click on the title of the video at the top corner up here, I think it'll take you to YouTube, and then you can do whatever you want on YouTube. Just, that's how it works, I guess. Michael says, by the way, loved your episodes on Picky Fingers. Thank you. Yeah, if you guys haven't listened to the Picky Fingers podcast, a bunch of really good interviews. And then if you're a Patreon supporter on that Patreon page, not mine, the other one, then you get the lessons that I post there. All kinds of stuff happening. Cool. Okay. Ken says, have to sign off now. Thanks so much. Thank you, Ken. Thanks for hanging out. This has been fun. Okay, so real quick, I just want to see if I remember it. If you were here for my last couple live streams, I was learning Beating Around the Bush the way Noam Pikelny plays it. It's a Bill Keith tune, but Noam Pikelny recorded it in a YouTube video that's pretty amazing. He played some amazing stuff, and I finally have learned all of it, but I can play it only very slowly. So I think I've caught up with the questions so far. So I'm going to play, to the best of my ability, Beating Around the Bush the way Noam Pikelny played it. If I can, we'll see. And we'll see if any more questions pop up in the meantime, because I think I've caught up to the current amount of questions. So this is as much as I can play, or as fast as I can play successfully. We'll see. This is a guess, but let's see how that goes. Okay. So let's see. What else we got? So it's much faster than that, and that's too fast for me, obviously, as you can tell. So, yikes. But that's okay. But I'll get there. I mean, if you watch my other live streams, you'll know I couldn't even play it anywhere near that fast last time. So progress is being made, slowly but surely. My drone string is too loud and shrill for me. Changing this pick helped. But have you ever seen anyone mute it at the bridge with foam? Yeah, no, you don't need to mute it. You don't need to mute the string in any way. It's probably more about getting everything else to be louder, which means when you practice a roll pattern, for instance, just make sure, like if you find yourself using your thumb really strong, you don't want that. You want to get everything as even as possible, right? So it's going to take some really thoughtful playing, some real, like, as slow as possible, like. And then once it becomes the habit, it'll just happen naturally. But I assume that's the issue that we're coming up with. If that's what you're hearing, that's my best guess at what would help with that. I never see that you have a strap on your banjo. Check out Sully Straps custom. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I actually do have a strap on my banjo. It's just a very small one. But that's cool. I think the strap world is very interesting. I just haven't gotten into it. Rob had asked, I guess the message is now retracted. I don't know what that means. About how to remember something like that. Just one bit at a time. I mean, it's funny. The first part that I learned. Now that I can't remember it. That much of it took, that's all I worked on for a day or a couple days or a week or whatever it was, just that amount of it. And then I worked on, it repeats that again, but the second time it does this. And it just has a different ending, right? But then this part was even harder to memorize. That's even more difficult. But there was no secret. I did not do anything special. Did not do anything. Levon says, "Hi, Eli, thanks for streaming. I enjoy your stuff a lot. Forgive me, but have you talked about memorization? In fact, you got here at just the right moment. That's what we're talking about right now." I don't think I do anything special to memorize things. It's more about persistence, and it's more about trusting that it'll happen. Because at one point when I was early on in my banjo or my music my music learning education, it was really hard to memorize things, and I just thought maybe it's not going to happen. But now I've been playing music for 15 years or so. And not just, and for anyone who's maybe played for like 30 years or something, it's not all the same. I've been playing for 15 years, different types of music, and a lot. I practice a lot. I would spend a lot of time in high school and then college, and otherwise I prioritize music over a lot of things, so I spend a lot of time. So that makes a huge difference, right? Just the amount of time you've put into it. But the fundamental principle that it will come, I think, is important to remember. But let's say I'm trying to memorize this tune, right, which is made up of those two difficult sections. I'm not going to memorize the entire thing at one time. And I'm also not going to memorize one section at one time. So, for instance, here's what happens. So this is the intro of that tune, right? So I'm not even going to play that all at once when I memorize it. I'm going to memorize this. Which I could not play that fast, by the way, when I started it. I could play it this fast. Okay, and then what's the second half? Once I have that memorized, what's the second half of the intro? Right? So now I've got that. Now I want to play all of that together. And let's assume that after I practice that over and over again, that I have that memorized. Then I can get into the next section, which is the actual tune. That's just the intro, right? So who knows how long that took me. If that took me all day, that's all I do. If it takes me longer than that, it just takes as long as it takes. But let's say that took me like 20 minutes. Who knows if it did, but maybe that's how long it took me. Then I'll get into the actual tune. that's the first part of it. That's about as much as I'll probably start with. I'll just say, okay, let's see if I can do that. Whatever it is. I'm not trying to play it faster and faster. I am right now, but the goal is just to memorize it. So I'm going to play it slowly over and over again. But then I memorized that, and then I forgot the intro, so I got that all together. But now if I try to play the intro, oh no, I lost that. Yeah, you have to go back again and re-memorize the intro, which means then when you get that memorized, you might have forgotten the other part that you just worked on. It's kind of back and forth. But here's the deal. When you go back to re-memorize the intro, it takes less time. Right? And then when you go back to re-memorize the section you just stopped playing, it takes less time again. I don't think you can memorize something in one day. I think you can memorize something for a day, and then the next day you might have like 70% of that still memorized, but it's going to only take you 30% of the amount of time to re-memorize what you were just looking at. And then the next day, maybe you've got 80% of it memorized. Well, then it's only going to take you 20% of the time to re-memorize. Right? Does that kind of make sense that it slowly builds up over time? No part of this was memorized in one sitting, right? I familiarized myself with it in one sitting. Then I re-familiarized with myself with it the next day. And then the next day, maybe I had it memorized. You know what I mean? But here's another thing that people will forget with memorizing things, is they'll try to memorize it while they're looking at it on the page, right? Like if you're reading tab, I don't think there's a problem with reading tab. But if you're trying to memorize it while looking at it, it's just not going to happen. If you're reading the tablature and trying to remember that, probably not going to memorize it. You have to look away from the tab and see if you can play what was there that you can't see anymore. That's a really good way to test yourself, is look at the tablature, make sure you can play it, and say, okay, how much can I play without looking at the tablature? When you make a mistake, look at the tablature, and that's the new thing you focus on. If this is what I'm playing and I'm looking at the tablature, right? But I play it like this. It's like, okay, great. Now I've got something to work on, which is this part. Once you've got that worked out, then you integrate it into the thing you're memorizing. It's just kind of rolling it all into one over and over again. But it's really about testing yourself, right? It's about forcing yourself to see how much you can do. And here's the problem. When you're asking yourself, how much do I have memorized? What you're asking yourself is, at what point do I fail? Right? The question is not, how good am I? The question is, how long can I go before I inevitably fail and can't play anymore because I forgot what the next thing is? And for some people, that's really hard to handle. It's really hard to face the fact that you can't do something, or you don't know something, or you're bad at something. But if you want to learn something that's difficult, if you want to learn something is not currently within your reach, then it really comes down to how many times are you willing to fail in order to get it. So as I practice this thing, because for instance, when I just played that whole tune, I mean, yeah, I played most of the notes correctly. I missed some things here and there. It wasn't that comfortable. It was too fast. Blah, blah, blah. I've got all my problems with it, right? I mostly played all this stuff. It's just not what I want it to be, right? So in my mind, that is one of those examples of like, I tried it, didn't go as well as I wanted it to go. That's the failure, right? It's not a bad word. It's just, that was the not doing exactly as well as I wanted to. But now I'm keeping in my mind all the things that went wrong that I know to practice. Like for instance, playing it slower, warming up before I play something, playing each section a couple times before I put it all together to make sure I have it all memorized, right? Because that's a long piece that has a lot of stuff in it, right? Maybe I can implement that now. Here's what I would do if I just played all of that and it was fine, but then we don't want fine, we want good or better or the best or whatever. So the way I played it before, if you were watching before, was fine. The issues where I played too fast for my own good, and probably had my hand a little too close to the bridge. I wasn't really thinking about it, so it was a little too much like that. That's not great. And I just hadn't warmed up, and I hadn't practiced all this. So now I'm a little bit warmed up, and now let's try it again. The appropriate tempo, see if we get a slightly better result. A little cramp in my leg. Got a real cramp in my leg. That's no good. Yeah. So that was better. It was not where it's supposed to be. Not as fast as it's supposed to be. Not as clean as it's supposed to be. Didn't play all the right notes, blah, blah, blah. All this stuff. There's a million things. But it was better. So in theory, if I just keep doing that process of saying what was wrong with it, let's focus on those things, and those get better, I'm going to run out of things to get better at. The problem is that takes years. I mean, this is a process like that being... getting that up to the speed that it's going to be at might take years and to be really great. And you also may never be satisfied. Are you okay with never being quite satisfied with it? Can you still be happy about it? Or is that going to make you miserable? I think I'm okay with it never being quite good enough, right? As long as I'm getting better. That's fun. If it was good enough, what would I do? But I'm not going to lose sleep over it. You know, there's a different version of that where it's not good enough and that makes you miserable, and that's bad. You don't want that. So if you can play that game with yourself of liking what you do and knowing that you can do it a little better and that being a fun process, then you're never going to have a problem. It's only when you don't think it's fun to try and get better. Yeah, that's a big part of the process. That's the whole process, really. If you're unwilling to enjoy the dance of being a little bit better and saying, oh, I'm getting pretty good, and then you find out, ooh, I'm not very good at all. It's like, oh, but maybe if I do this, I will be good. And then you do it and you say, ooh, I'm getting pretty good. And then you find out, not very good at all. It's never ending, but it's kind of fun, actually. So as long as you look at it that way, then you might enjoy it. Okay. I think we have reached the reasonable conclusion of tonight's live stream. This has been super fun. We'd like to do this again maybe in a couple days, perhaps. If you'd like to be notified when I do this again, there are 2 ways that you can do that. If you are subscribed on YouTube and you hit the little notification bell thing, you'll get a notification when I post a video or a live stream. You'll be the first to know. And great. So subscribe, like, comment, all that stuff. As I described before, it is extremely helpful to me when you do that. And helpful to you too, because the more that helps me, the more I can make the videos, right? Which I love to do. The other way that you can find out about these live streams and watch them once they're over, which you can't do otherwise, is to go to patreon.com/EliGilbertBanjo, where you can get tablature and these live streams, bonus practice tip videos. You can get in touch with me a little easier than anywhere else. I try to respond to everything I can, especially right now. It's a little tough, just because it's very busy. Everyone's having fun with the banjo, as am I, which is great. It just means I have more things to respond to. So if I haven't responded to you yet, actually, if you're out there and I haven't responded to you yet, just send me another message and say, hey, I'm one of those people you haven't responded to. And I'll try and get back to you. My feelings will never be hurt if you remind me to respond to you. But check out the Patreon stuff. It's where you get everything extra for a couple bucks a month, and it makes all of this possible, and that's very cool. I'm very, very lucky that none of what's going on in the world right now is having a huge impact on me financially. Other musicians, that is not the case. Most other musicians are in a tough spot right now. So I recommend that you support those musicians in whatever way you can. I appreciate any support that I get, but I also want to acknowledge that I'm very lucky not to have been impacted in the same way most people have. And yeah, enjoy the banjo videos and reach out if you got more questions. And we'll see what we can do to answer those questions. All right, this has been very fun, and we'll